What's up, my crafting friends? We are back. This is the X Crafter, and today I'm going to channel my inner Bob Ross. I pulled out my big easel for a small framed canvas. We're going to be using an 11 by 14 stretch canvas today. Now I'm going to pull the camera here in just a moment to give you a little close up of what I've got going and tell you a little bit more about it. But I'm going to try something a little bit different. We're going to be blending, or we're going to be using a couple of different techniques. I'm still going to be using the spray paint, but I'm also adding in some acrylic paints, and we're going to do hopefully a nice little mountain scene. I'm debating as to whether I think I'm going to do this in maybe a gray tone, or I may do this in a full color. I'm not fully sure yet exactly what we're going to do. We're just going to go with the flow. And again, we're going monstrous today. We have a great big easel out that can handle some pretty big canvases, but we're going to start off with an 11 by 14. So let's take a look at the canvas and talk about what I have on it. All right, so this is what we have. We have an 11 by 14 stretch canvas that is already set up on the easel, and I've got a big old easel here going today. And this canvas has been pre-treated. I've added a white finish to it already to try to keep some of the paints, because the spray paint wants to soak into it. So I've already painted this with a white underlayment using spray paint, of course, and let that dry. And now we're going to go back and we're going to get started on the actual work. So let's get the camera set up and let's get going. Let's go have some fun, get crafty, and channel our inner Bob Ross. That's right, here we go. All right, so some of the tools that we'll be using today will be, as I said, I'm going to channel my inner Bob Ross, will be a 2-inch brush, an 1.5-inch brush, a couple of palette knives, a fan brush, and a filbert brush, or a rounded brush. This is a number 12 filbert. That will be some of the brushes and tools that I'll be using today, along with the spray paint, and of course, I will be using some Master's Touch acrylic paints. Now, again, I'm not quite positive on the colors that I will be using, but this will be the brand that I'll be using. And as far as the spray paint, I will be focusing primarily on Rust-Oleum brand 2-time cover spray paints. So these are, let me get around here a little bit so maybe you can see me. These are some of the brands or products that I'll be using today as we channel our inner Bob Ross. I have on my apron so that I don't get paint all over me. And we're going to get going with this and see what we can do and have a little fun and get a little creative. Let's get crafty. All right, so we're going to start off by using a little bit of clear coat, and we're going to start off with a sky up here. And the reason I'm using clear coat is, if you have ever watched Bob Ross, you know that it is a wet on wet painting technique. The clear coat is going to help to get the paint moving and get things going. And then we're going to lay in a little bit of a sky and go from there as to how we're going to do it. Now, am I going to do the sky in all spray paint, or am I going to do it with a little bit of acrylic? You'll just have to wait to see. All right, so we're going to add some clear coat here, just to the top portion of the canvas, because I want that paint to be able to move. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to just a little bit of that. And now here's where the fun comes in. This is a small canvas, so we're going to start off with our 1.5-inch brush here, and we're just going to kind of work in some swirling motions. If you've ever watched Bob Ross, you've seen his techniques of doing skies. We're just going to kind of swirl in to get some sky effect here. get a nice, I want a good, nice kind of puffy cloud look on the sky. All right, that's looking pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add a little bit more blue. And we're going to add a touch more of the clear coat so that paint will move a little bit more freely. I'm going to come in just a little bit more. Now, the reason I did not add any white to this is because the white that's underneath this is going to work its way in. Now, this is not the traditional painting using strictly acrylics or oil-based paints. And because we are using spray paints on this, the paint is a little bit thinner and it's going to act a little bit differently than what the traditional paints would do. Now, I think we're going to go with this right here. One more thing that I do have is I have a container, and because this is all water-based paints, I have a container of water with just a little bit of alcohol in that so that we can keep our brushes cleaned. I'll take some paper towel, and we'll do a little bit of a Bob Ross of beating that brush. Good thing I'm outside. Beating that brush and getting going. And now's where the fun will come in, because we're going to decide what we're going to add into this painting. Are we going to put a full mountain scene? Are we going to add trees? Or are we going to add a water scene? That's where the decision making comes in. Now, this is something that you can pre-plan or something you can do as you're going, because a lot of times you're starting, as you've seen some other paintings, you've seen that, I start with something, and as I'm going with it, I begin to change it. So this one, I think we're going to do some painting with some mountains, and we're going to use our palette knives for that. So let's get some paint ready, because this time we're going straight in. You hear my dog barking. She's barking at the neighbors that's out. So we're going to start in now, and we're going to add in and start using acrylics. So here we go. All right, so we have a makeshift palette here. I've misplaced my palette that I use. I think it's actually my storage unit. I'll have to find that if I'm going to do this again. But it's been quite a while, probably about 4 or 5 years since I've done any big painting. Maybe not quite so long, but it's been a good while. I know at least 3 years since I've done any painting of this style. So a makeshift palette here using a piece of poster board and 3 colors: black, burnt sienna, and titanium white. So let's get this going and get moving with it. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to take our palette knife and we're going to mix a little bit of black, a little bit of the burnt sienna, and a little bit of the titanium white. Put just a little bit more of that titanium white in there. Mix this up. Pull down. We're going to wipe off the excess. And we're going to cut a little bit onto just to the edge of the blade here. Let's see if we can see that. Just to the edge of the blade. And then we're going to go straight to our canvas. And this is where the fun begins, because we're going to start in and we're going to lay out our mountain scene. So we're going to go right here. Now I'm holding the palette knife kind of loose. So I'm going to go in right here. We're going to figure out where we want our mountain to begin. And I think we're going to go right about here. And we're just going to kind of scrape this onto our canvas. Now I want it to go on kind of light, because I'm going to blend this in just a moment, and I'll show you that technique. Now, using the spray paints, and this is something new that I have not done much with, But using the spray paints, let me place this over here out of the way. Using the spray paints gives me a little bit more flow control here because that clear coat that I added on there is allowing me to get some flow with that paint. So now we're going to take, we're just going to go with our 2-inch brush, and we're just going to grab the paint and we're going to kind of pull it down. Just going to pull the paint just like so. Grab that paint and pull it just like this, blending it down. Now this works just a little bit differently than your oil paints and working with straight acrylic or anything like that. I'm going to clean the brush off just a little bit here. Get some of that excess paint off. Then we're going to go across it like this. Now, clean the brush a little bit. Give it a shake. And a beat. All right, now, we're going to come in, got a gnat flying around out here. We're going to come in, we're going to decide where we want our highlights coming from. Is the sun going to be coming from the left or from the right? And that's the big decision that has got to be made in getting this going. Okay, so I've got my makeshift palette back. I'm going to clean off some of this titanium white. Just got some of the paints mixed into it. And I'm going to come over here, I'm going to take some titanium white and just a little bit that I had already got. That way we get a little bit of a mixture here. I'm going to get a little bit more of the titanium white in there. And get just a little bit on the side of the brush now, or palette knife in this case. And now this is where we got to decide where we want our highlights. And I've decided that I want the lights coming from the right-hand side of my canvas. So I'm just going to start laying in. And I don't like that. It's not quite white enough. I'm going to go up here and I'm going to grab a little bit more of my white. And there we go. That's a little bit better. And I'm using my smaller palette knife this time. And I'm dragging kind of loosely with this because I want some texture in this. When this paint dries, I want it to have texture to it. And I went a little bit heavy with that, but that's okay. I have not done this in a very long time. So I'm just now getting back into doing this one. All right. Now, when you're doing things like this, you have to keep in mind that this is art. And as Bob Ross would say, we don't have mistakes. We have happy little accidents. And we can always come in and find ways to fix it. Make it unique. Make it different. Make it art. And I am also, another big thing that we have going right here is I am outside. And it is hot and it is muggy out here. We've had some rain in the past day or two. And that rain has definitely made a difference. It has got a lot of humidity in the air. And as I said the other day, humidity definitely affects your paint. It doesn't matter if you are painting with spray paint with oil paints, with acrylics, no matter what you're painting with, the humidity is going to affect that paint. It's going to affect how that paint goes down. It's going to affect how that paint dries. It's going to affect how that paint flows if you're trying to work with it and trying to do some blending. The humidity is going to make a huge difference in how your paint behaves. I think I'm going to come in right here and I'm going to put a little ridge right here. And like I say, I have not done this style painting in a long time. And I am experimenting. I am trying two different style paints. And I actually sorry about that, my dog is barking again at the neighbors. I actually saw another spray paint artist doing a very similar technique that I am doing, using the combination of the spray paints and the acrylic paints and painting with a more of a traditional painting style, painting technique. And I decided to give it a try to see how it would work out myself and go from there. So we're going to try it and keep going with it and see how things go. And we'll see how it turns out. Now, like I said, this is a practice piece. And, this can give an idea. This can give us all an idea of what we can do and what we can't do. And like I said, I think one of the things that I will change up, this is not horrible. As I said, you don't make mistakes in art because art is exactly what that is. It is art. It's unique. It's done certain ways. It's done certain styles. So we're going to work on this. Let's go back to it and see what we can do with it. All right, so I've added a little bit of phthalo blue to my palette, to my makeshift palette, that is. And then we're going to blend just a little bit of that. And we're going to use the short end of the knife here. On this side right here, we're going to use that to do everything with. So we're going to mix a little bit of the titanium white and a little bit of that phthalo blue. And we'll grab some of this down here, a little bit darker, blend in with that. And then we're going to come in here and we're going to add some shadow. And because this is kind of a snowy scene, we're going to go ahead and let that kind of blend in with the white that's on there. And we're going to bring these mountains to life. And this is where you can actually come in and maybe do a little bit of a cleanup. You can see we're already starting to get a little bit of correction to what some people would refer to as a mistake. And we're going in here and we're adding some detail to it. And in doing so, we are fixing some of that issue. I'm going to kind of scrape kind of hard right here. I'm going to pull off some of that paint that was on there. And just like that, we have some shadow, and we have kind of fixed some of the issues with that texture. All right, got a little bit of a hitchhiker here. Now, I know this part right here looks all uneven and everything, and there's a reason for that because we're going to come back. Let me clean my palette knife off here. We're going to come back and we're going to move back into our spray painting. And do a little bit of blending. So let me get a little bit more paper towel over here. I have a little bit of paint on my hand, and we're going to move on with this because it's clouding up and I'm outside. I really don't want rain to hit this. We want to have a little bit of wetness to it, but we don't really want that kind of wet on wet. So let's move on to the next step. All right, now we're back to the spray paint. We're going to just lightly mist the bottom of that mountain. We want to get a mist effect onto that. And now we're going to decide, what do we want here? We want a landmass, or do we want, a field with flowers? Do we want a water scene? And in this case, I think we're going to go with a water scene. So we're going to first take, and we're going to get just a light layer of our clear coat on there, not a whole lot. And we're going to get our palette that we have here. We're going to get our makeshift palette. And you know what? My palette is starting to get a little full. So I think what we're going to do, this kind of makes it easy for cleanup in a way, because we're pretty much done with these colors. But I'm just going to lay it aside, and I'm going to grab another. And this is some Dollar Tree poster boards. So if you don't have a palette, this works great for a makeshift palette. All right, we're going to grab a fresh makeshift palette, and we're going to add a little bit of lake blue. A little bit of phthalo blue. This is actually phthalocyanine blue. Phthalo blue. And a little bit of the titanium white. So that we can blend these together and get this paint off of my hand. The good thing about wearing a apron while I'm doing this is I can kind of use it for wiping onto. All right, so we're going to pull out our 2-inch brush, and we're going to blend these colors and decide how we're going to go. I want more of I think I want more of the lake blue, just a tad of the phthalo blue, and a little bit of white in there. And this is kind of color we're going with here. Maybe a little bit more of the phthalo in with that. And now here's where the fun begins. We're going to come in, and we're going to go from side to center. From side to center. So we're going to get some paint on our nose. This would be a lot easier if we had a actual palette, but we're going to get the end of our brush coated with paint, and we're going to go from the side into the middle, but we're not going to go all the way across. So just watch what I'm doing here. We're going to go same thing from this side over here. And now we're going to go back and forth just like this. And by doing this, this gives the indication of a little bit of light reflecting onto the water. So we're going to mix a little bit more paint here. And we're going to go all the way down to the bottom of our canvas. I'm going to show you something up here in just a moment that's going to take care and clean up this line. First, I want to show you one more thing that we're going to do. We're going to take a little bit of our clear coat. We'll just lightly spray over it so that we can get a little bit more flow control here. And you see that? I'm getting a little bit more flow control. The paint's flowing just a little bit better. Now I think this painting is going to be just some mountains and the water. I think that's going to be all this painting is going to be. It can be as complex or it can be as simple as you want it to be. Let's clean this brush off and do a little bit more blending. I know why Bob Ross enjoyed doing that. It's fun. It takes out some frustration. All right, so we got our brush cleaned off. It's kind of dry. It's still a little bit moisture to it. That's okay. And now we're just going to go over the water a little bit. Get a little bit more blending here. And then I'm going to show you a little trick that just came up that I just got an idea on how to do it. Let's clean this brush one more time. And now we're going to take our Rust-Oleum white I'm going to get a little bit of a mist going at the bottom of the mountain. We're going to lightly go over the mountain itself because I want a mist going across it. And now we're going to take our brush and I'm just going to barely touch it. I'm just going to barely touch. Pull some of that white into it. And there we go. And I think we're going to call this painting finished. I don't know about you, but I like the way that it turned out. So again, you can take your paintings and you can also have fun and get nice and dirty while you're doing it. But you can take your paintings and you can get as complex or as simple as you want with them. And getting everything going, I'm going to find me a brush here to sign this with. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little bit of clear coat, get that paint nice and moist right there. I'm actually going to come in and we're going to scratch our signature into the bottom corner. Perfect. And now I'm just going to put a light clear coat over this entire canvas. And we'll allow this to dry. And once this piece is completely dry, we'll get a picture of it hanging up. So what do you think? It was a new technique, a fun technique, turned out pretty good. Kind of messy. I should have worn my gloves, but those gloves are getting a little costly since they went up on them. I used to have to pay that much for my gloves, but yeah, they went up a good bit. So I'm trying to go easy on them. It's easy cleanup. Soap and water comes off perfectly fine. So I like the way that it turned out. We're going to let it get good and dry. We'll get a picture of it and we'll share it at the very end of this video. comment below. Let me know what you think about it. Be sure to hit that subscribe button and ring that bell so that you'll know when I upload my next video. So a little bit of a change in the spray paint art, still using spray paint, but also adding in a little bit of traditional acrylic painting and channeling my inner Bob Ross. So I hope you enjoyed it. And until next time, stay crafty. And as always, have fun with what you're doing.